Welcome to our miscellaneous section here at the end of the infectious disease section. The quote-unquote ancillary material. Let's look at a few of these. Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Well, let's see. Looks like spots. Look at the spots here. Spots. But is he in the Rocky Mountains? No, he's not in the Rocky Mountains. Where you get Rocky Mountain spotted fever is you get in North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama. So therefore, down in the south, in between cups of sweet tea, and you get bitten by a different type of tick. You get bitten by a different type of tick. Here it is, the spots on the soles of the feet, and you get bitten by a dig tick. Why? The American dog tick, Dermacentor variabilis. Okay, and the thing about Rocky Mountain spotted fever, oh, when it is Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And let's see, we got a tick. Now remember, 60% of people can remember that tick bite. You start out with a fever and a headache, and then the rash develops. You diagnose it with serologic testing, and you treat it with doxycycline as you would for all the rickettsia. Now let's look at the next thing. Aspergillus. Look at this thing here. You see this mold here? See these little things on top? Those are spores coming off the top of the mold. These things here, that's a spore, And that is because this, to the people who looked at it originally, said, well, you know what? That looks like something called an aspergillium. Anybody know what an aspergillium is? My little failed Catholics. Largest religion in the United States, Catholic. Second largest religion in the United States, people who used to be Catholic. Fallen away Catholic, second largest religion. Well, when the priest is out there, and it's out in the high holy days, and he's spraying the crowds with holy water, Domine, 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 Domine. Okay, and spraying the holy water, that's an aspergillium. An aspergillium is the thing that the priest sprays out, and that's what it looked like to people, the holy water spraying device, the aspergillium. And now, instead of spraying holy water, he's spraying spores. So aspergillus, look up in the sky, above the ceiling tile. Out there in dry areas, in ventilation, all around you in the environment are the spores of aspergillus. You don't get it, and I don't get it because you have normal neutrophils. Now, we have two different major types. We have people who have neutrophil defects, such as people who have leukemia or bone marrow transplants, leukemia, steroids, and bone marrow transplants, and they get severe, acute, necrotizing aspergillus, which eats through your lungs because those spores get inhaled, they germinate in your lungs if you don't have good alveolar macrophages, and they eat right through you, and it's very fatal, very fatal. You diagnose it with a culture, fungal culture. Then there's also allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillus. And allergic bronchopulmonary aspergillus is much more minor, presents like asthma, have increased eosinophils, and you could diagnose with aspergillus precipitans in the blood. So aspergillus can be a necrotizing thing that eats through your lungs. It can form aspergillus balls, aspergillomas in your lungs, or it can just be allergic. A minor thing gets treated with steroids. This gets treated with steroids. This aspergillus here, I'm going to have some new words for you. This is treated with amphotericin. That's not the new word yet. Remember what we said the adverse effect of amphotericin is? Adverse effects, renal, and it causes a type 1 renal tubular acidosis, a distal renal tubular acidosis. You get a metabolic acidosis and hypokalemia. You get a metabolic acidosis and hypokalemia. Now we have two other drugs for you, brand new. Ready? Voriconazole. Useful for aspergillus. That's like fluconazole, but it adds aspergillus therapy, adds aspergillus to it. And you ready? Here's a new thing, caspofungin. Wow, caspofungin, new. It's in a group of drugs called echinocandins. Caspofungin, micafungin, anadulafungin. caspofungin, mycofungin, anadulafungin. I see that look on your face. I see the look on that face of yours out there in video land. I see you now. This is what you look like. Oh my God, more crap to learn. Oh. Well, mycofungin, caspofungin, anadulafungin, the class of drugs called echinocandins. Well, echinocandins are an outstanding idea. They affect a linkage in the wall of fungi and yeast, the 1,4-glucan wall linkage, and that doesn't exist in eukaryotic cells. Hey, are you a eukaryote or a prokaryote? You, my friend out there, like me, strength and honor. Hail, fellow eukaryote. Are you truly have a cell, a true cell? Do you have a nucleus and everything? Hail, fellow eukaryotes of the world. And that is you and me and gerbils too, having a nucleus, a eukaryote, a true cell. Well, it turns out that this doesn't handle. Eukaryotic cells don't have the linkage that echinocandins inhibit. The good news is, if you have a drug that doesn't affect the linkage present in the human body, it means the toxicity is less, because it can't roll over your toes. You see, the problem with these other drugs is that amphotericin, on its way to rolling over and killing your fungus, also rolls over your kidney too. But echinocandins, caspofungin, mycofungin, anadulafungin don't do that, because that linkage is only in prokaryotic cells, aspergillus. This is an aspergilloma, a ball of aspergillus. Mycetoma is another way of saying fungus ball, fungus ball, fungus ball. Aspergilloma, remove it surgically. Now, blastomycosis. Well, let's see. Look at these broad buds here. Broad buds. Look at these broad buds there. Look at those broad buds. And that's the whole point about blasto. When you see blastomycosis, it is broad budding yeast. Broad budding yeast. Like most of these other fungi, you find blastomycosis from decaying vegetation out into the woods. I went away into the woods because I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. Having found myself on the day of my death, I did not want to think that I had not yet lived. So I went away into the woods because I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. Henry David Thoreau. Now, blastomycosis. I went away into the woods because I wanted to live deep and suck out all the blastomycosis spores. Well, histo, blasto, crypto, coccidioidomycosis. Histo, blasto, crypto, coccidioidomycosis, aspergillus. Histo, blasto, crypto, coccidioidomycosis, aspergillus. You find them in the environment in spores. Spores. You inhale them, and then they can disseminate. You inhale them, they're a primary lung infection, and then they can disseminate. Brain, bone, skin. Brain, bone, skin. Blasto, like histo, goes into the lungs, and then it disseminates to the skin, broad budding yeast. Histo, blasto, coccidioidomycosis, crypto. You inhale the spore and it disseminates. Brain, bone, skin. You treat it with amphotericin, voriconazole, caspofungin. Amphotericin, voriconazole, caspofungin. Now, the same way that blastomycosis is in decaying vegetation, histoplasmosis is in river valleys. River valleys. And when you see river valleys, you will see histoplasmosis because it hangs out where it is wet. Now the opposite, where it is dry, goes into the joints and causes erythema nodosum. Where it is dry, goes into the joints and erythema nodosum. Where it is dry, goes into the joints and erythema nodosum. That's coccidioidomycosis and coccidioidomycosis. Dry deserts joint, dry deserts joint. Desert rheumatism, also known as San Joaquin Valley fever. Dry cocci. If it happened in Arizona, coccidioidomycosis did it. Anything that happens in Arizona, even if it's a gunshot wound, motor vehicle accident, coccidioidomycosis was driving the car. Dry, desert, rheumatism. Histo, wet river valleys. Next one, toxic shock syndrome. Staph aureus resulting in a toxin. Toxic shock syndrome. I'm desquamating. Well, what's the difference then between toxic shock syndrome and staph scalded skin syndrome? What's the difference then between toxic shock and staph scalded skin? And toxic shock syndrome gives you hypotension and also affects the liver and the kidneys. Gives you increased LFTs, increased creatinine. Toxic shock syndrome, toxic shock syndrome. Now, that's the end of our ancillary material. I bid you farewell from the infectious disease section. And I think about and wish you to remember all the great things that you learn here and to realize that you're now more intelligent, more knowledgeable, more useful, more beautiful than you were just a few hours ago before you started this section. What a piece of work as a man. How noble in form, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. You are the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals.